Israel cabinet approves a plan to conquer Gaza. US halts funding for risky virus research. Good afternoon and Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Prime Minister Dato' Seri Anwar Ibrahim has expressed confidence that Malaysia-Singapore bilateral relations will continue to strengthen under the leadership of Singapore's Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, especially as Malaysia assumes the ASEAN chairmanship this year. In a Facebook post, he said that he conveyed this during a phone call with Wong earlier today, where he also extended his congratulations to his counterpart and the People's Action Party PAP on their decisive victory in the island state's general election on Saturday. Dato' Seri Anwar Ibrahim further commented on the PAP's strong mandate, winning 87 out of 97 seats reflects the high confidence and trust placed by Singaporeans in Wong's leadership. He added Malaysia looks forward to working closely with Wong and his administration to further enhance the long-standing bilateral ties which are rooted in shared history, robust economy, cooperation and close people-to-people connections between the two neighbouring nations. Israel struck a man in what the Houthi said was a joint raid with the United States a day after the Iran-backed group claimed missile fire at Israel's main airport. The Houthi-run Al Masirah television said 6 airstrikes hit the port of Hodeidah and Bajil district, blaming US-Israeli aggression for both. Israel confirmed it had carried out the strikes, while US officials denied any parts in the raid. Al Masirah TV released footage of the aftermath of the Bajil cement factory, showing firefighters working to put out blazes and a body lying amongst the debris of a collapsed structure. More than 10 strikes targeted Hodeidah Port and the Al-Salakhanah and Al-Hawak neighborhoods in the city of Hodeidah, 5 residents told Reuters. 4 strikes also targeted the cement factory east of Hodeidah. Houthi-run Health Ministry spokesman said the strikes injured at least 21 people. The Houthis shut down the area around the port and cement factory following the strikes. Israel's Security Cabinet approved the expansion of military operations in Gaza, including the conquest of the Palestinian territory, an official said on Monday after the army called up tens of thousands of reservists for the offensive. The Israeli official said the expanded operations will include, among other things, the conquest of the Gaza Strip and the holding of the territories, moving the Gaza population south for their protection.
יש לנו תוכנית סדורה. אנחנו מתקדמים ועוברים לשלב חדש ועצים יותר. המבצע יכלול מתקפה רחבה, הכוללת הנאה של מרבית אוכלוסיית הרצועה. זאת על מנת להגן עליה באזור סטרילי מחמאס.
A different senior security official said a central component of the plan is a large-scale evacuation of the entire Gazan population from the fighting zones to areas in southern Gaza. He added a voluntary transfer program for Gaza residents will be part of the operation's goals. The plan, approved by the cabinet overnight, comes amid a push by Israel for Palestinians to leave the territory. It comes as the United Nations and aid organizations have repeatedly warned of the humanitarian catastrophe on the ground, with famine again looming after more than 2 months of a total Israeli blockade. The United Nations UN has rejected Israel's proposal to deliver aid into Gaza under military control conditions in a statement recently, citing serious humanitarian concerns. The UN humanitarian team in Gaza emphasized Israel's plan would violate core humanitarian principles and appeared designed to reinforce control over life-sustaining items as a pressure tactic as part of a military strategy. The proposed delivery mechanism would require UN approval to distribute supplies through Israeli checkpoints under conditions set by the Israeli military. The UN team warned the proposed strategy would force civilians into militarized zones to collect rations, placing both them and the aid workers at risk. Vulnerable people with limited mobility may not be reached, and the plan would likely contribute to further forced displacement. It also reiterated that international law prohibits collective punishment and obliges occupying power to ensure the welfare of civilians. Israel has blocked all humanitarian aid into Gaza since early March, halting deliveries of food, clean water and medicine. It stressed that the blockade aims to pressure Palestinian group Hamas to release remaining hostages. Meanwhile, Spain announced it will contribute an additional €500,000 to support UN investigations into human rights violations and possible war crimes committed in Gaza. Spain described Israeli aid blockade as totally and absolutely unacceptable. Spain's government also called for the urgent entry of food in order to save the lives of innocent Palestinians. Spain also emphasized the civilian population of Gaza deserves dignity and peace, and Spain demands it and will continue to demand it. Last week, Spain participated in oral proceedings at the International Court of Justice concerning Israel's obligations as an occupying power in the occupied Palestinian territories. In the proceedings, Spain reiterated Tel Aviv's responsibility to comply with its obligations under international and humanitarian law, including ensuring the basic needs of the population and cooperating with the UN. On a related note, the head of the Norwegian Refugee Council, Jan Egeland, emphasized that an Israeli plan to take over the distribution of humanitarian aid into Gaza at hubs controlled by the military is fundamentally against humanitarian principles. He added its 108 workers in Gaza have run out of relief items there after 2 months of Israeli aid blockade.
The military, would screen who would get aid and what they would get and how they would get it. I mean, it's fundamentally wrong that a military strategic decision would govern humanitarian aid. They are under obligation under international law to enable and facilitate international, neutral, impartial humanitarian groups to reach all people in need if they are not doing it themselves to all of the population.
Egeland also warned if the new aid system being implemented that limits to only those who Israel would like to ration aid to, it would mean that this starvation will continue to spread in Gaza. The UN requires roughly $160 million to avert a food crisis in conflict-battered northeast Nigeria. Speaking to reporters on Monday, the body's humanitarian arm said the situation is at its worst in 5 years. Officials said the funds are needed to provide nutritional and health supplies to 2 million people, including 600,000 children in the Borno, Adamawa and Yobe states. The request comes as cuts by the United States have hampered the humanitarian response. The cuts, notably to its main foreign development arm, U.S. aid, have had a critical impact on the capacity to provide critical services to people in the region. Officials from the World Food Programme, Food and Agriculture Organization, and the Children's Fund, UNICEF, warn that the already precarious humanitarian situation could be worsened by a disease outbreak or natural disasters such as flooding. The region has been plagued by a 15-year insurgency that has killed more than 40,000 people and displaced over 2 million. The fighting has also ruined livelihoods and hindered access to agricultural land and markets. US President Donald Trump has ordered new limitations on a form of biological research that his administration says caused the COVID-19 pandemic through a lab leak in China.
What we're doing in the world of medicine.
According to an executive order, the United States will halt funding in certain countries for so-called gain-of-function experiments aimed at enhancing the properties of pathogens. Trump's order names China as an example of a country of concern where such research should not be supported. The order also seeks to end funding for other types of life sciences research in countries deemed to lack sufficient oversight, significantly broadening the types of foreign research that could be targeted. Trump's executive orders comes amid broader efforts by his administration to reshape American science and health policy, including mass firings to government scientists and steep slashes to research budgets.
Trump administration disqualifies Harvard from future research grants. The Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Abdul Aziz stressed that the reciprocal tariff negotiations with the US are actively underway alongside strong support for local industries and the exploration of new export markets. He added Malaysia will begin reciprocal tariff negotiations with the US today and it will be held virtually. The negotiations will be led by Deputy Secretary General Trade Mastura Ahmad Mustafa as Malaysia's chief negotiator, alongside the Assistant US Trade Representative for Southeast Asia and the Pacific, Sarah Ellerman.
Kita sebenarnya tidak memilih jalan yang mudah. Kita tidak tunduk kepada tekanan. Kita memilih untuk berunding secara berprinsip dan strategik demi mempertahankan pekerjaan rakyat, keyakinan pelabur dan juga kedaulatan dasar negara.
He noted that the initial discussions aim to determine the scope and technical issues that need to be addressed to reach a mutually beneficial outcome. Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul further explained that the US has outlined 4 main areas of concern: trade imbalance, non-tariff barriers as highlighted in the National Trade Estimate Report, technology safeguarding and investment-related issues. He added that the US also raised concerns over several non-tariff barriers which they believe can be improved. Earlier, on 24th April, the minister led a high-level delegation to Washington, D.C. to discuss with U.S. Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick and U.S. Trade Representatives Jamison Greer. The U.S. Department of Education informed Harvard University on Monday that it is freezing new research grants from the federal government. Education Secretary Linda McMahon sent a 3-page letter to Harvard President Alan M. Garber blasting the school for disastrous mismanagement. McMahon wrote in the letter stating that Harvard should no longer seek grants from the federal government since none will be provided. She added that the administration had previously been willing to maintain federal funding to Harvard as long as it committed to complying with federal law. Tensions have been risen between the Trump administration and elite universities over issues including admissions, hiring practices, curriculum oversight, and responses to pro-Palestine campus protests. The Trump administration has already frozen more than $2.2 billion in federal grants to Harvard and $60 million in contracts. Harvard has sued the administration in response, alleging that the funding freeze violates the First Amendment and federal law, which bars the president from directly or indirectly ordering the Internal Revenue Service to conduct or terminate an audit or investigation. New Zealand's Prime Minister today proposed banning children under 16 from social media, stressing the need to protect them from the perils of big tech platforms.
Prime Minister Christopher Luxon unveiled draft laws that would force the social media companies to verify users were at least 16 years old or face fines of up to $1.2 million. The proposed ban was modelled on that of Australia, which sits at the forefront of global efforts to regulate social media. The move sparked a fierce backlash from big tech companies who variously described the laws as rushed, vague and problematic. It was not clear when the legislation would be introduced to Parliament, but Luxon hoped of garnering support across the chamber. The laws were drafted by Luxon's centre-right National Party, the biggest member in New Zealand's three-way governing coalition. To be passed, they would need support of Luxon's two other coalition partners. Heavy rains in northwestern Colombia claimed the life of one person after they caused a mudslide that left destructions in its path. A strong storm caused the Los Oliveras Creek to overflow and a current to go down the streets, carrying vegetation and vehicles in its path. National media reported that one person died and another was injured in the area. In Itagüí, authorities declared a state of public calamity and reported that at least 35 families were affected in the municipality. Cochabamba City in Bolivia is struggling with piles of uncollected garbage as the region enters its second consecutive week of conflict over waste disposal. The municipal landfill, Caracara, has closed its doors, leaving the city without options for waste disposal. The municipality had set up another emergency dump in the neighbouring municipality, but the residents blocked it, leaving the city with no options. While some try to continue their lives in the midst of the garbage and the intense odours, others demand the authorities to take prompt action on the garbage issue, which they claim poses a risk of infection for the children. US military personnel reinforced barbed fire fencing along the border with Ciudad Juarez, while Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum reiterated her rejection of US President Donald Trump's offer to send US troops to combat drug trafficking. Sheinbaum's comments were in response to a report that said Trump was pressuring Mexico to allow deeper US military involvement against drug cartels across the shared border. Trump has said publicly that the US would take unilateral military action if Mexico failed to dismantle drug cartels.
Next up in sports, Trent Alexander-Arnold to leave LFC at the end of the contract. Stay tuned. All right, we kick off our sports segment today with the local news. Malaysia's national mounted archery team made a strong statement on the Asian stage by securing third place overall at the 2025 Asian Group 1 qualifier for the Horseback Archery World Cup held in Hanoi, China. The surprise podium finish places Malaysia in a promising position to qualify for the World Cup finals later this year. The team comprising Muhammad Afiq Samsudin, Muhammad Waliuddin, Muhammad Zarazila, Adawiyatun-Nisa Azham Afif and Mika Irfan Aiman Amalo Noji impressed with consistent performances throughout the tournament. Head coach Muhammad Akmal Muhammad Dahalan hailed the result as a major morale boost for the squad and said it would serve as a springboard for further preparations.
InsyaAllah Ta'ala kita akan ke Hungary, kita akan ke Turki untuk mempelajari dua teknik, iaitu di Turki ini kita belajar kikas dan kabak, manakala di Hungary ini kita akan menguasai OKS daripada mereka yang benar-benar menguasai teknik ini insyaAllah.
Malaysia finished behind host nation China, who emerged champion, and Mongolia, who took second place. The event featured 6 participating countries, including Indonesia, Thailand and South Korea. Trent Alexander-Arnold will leave Liverpool when his contract expires at the end of the season, saying it was the hardest decision of his life. The England right-back's future had been the subject of the intense debate throughout Liverpool's charge to the Premier League title this season.
Okay. After 20 years at Liverpool Football Club, I'll be leaving at the end of the season. I think the decision for me is personal. I will always remain a Liverpool fan.
Alexander-Arnold's contract talks over a free transfer switch to Real Madrid are reported to be at an advanced stage. He will depart as a Premier League champion after the Reds moved level with rivals Manchester United on a joint record 20 English top-flight titles. The defender has made 352 appearances for the Reds to date, scoring 23 goals and lifting multiple trophies, including the 2019 Champions League and 2 Premier League crowns. The Reds have 3 league fixtures left this season, giving Alexander-Arnold a chance to say a long goodbye before the final game against Crystal Palace at Anfield on 25th May.
Barcelona striker Robert Lewandowski has been declared fit to return from a hamstring injury. However, he is set to start on the bench in the Champions League semi-final second leg at Inter Milan.
After sustaining the injury during Barca's 4-3 victory against Celta Vigo on 19th April, he missed their Copa del Rey final victory over rivals Real Madrid and the first leg of the Champions League semi against Inter.
Everything goes in on the right way, and he's good, much better than we expect, and he's ready for the bench. So it's when we need him, maybe he can come in. So it's like that.
Barcelona's hopes of reaching their first Champions League final in a decade are buoyed by Lewandowski's return, especially after an exhilarating 3-3 draw in the first leg. However, the team will be without key fullbacks Jules Koundé and Alejandro Balde, both sidelined with injuries. Flick did not reveal his plans to replace the injured duo, but he hinted at deploying centre-backs Ronald Araujo and Eric Garcia, or relying on youngsters Hector Ford or Gerard Martin in their natural positions. Barcelona are chasing a treble, unbeaten domestically since late December and leading La Liga with 79 points, 4 ahead of Real Madrid.
Meanwhile, Inter manager Simone Inzaghi said his star striker and captain Lautaro Martinez could still potentially appear in the second leg of the Champions League semi-final.
Inzaghi said there was a possibility of the Argentines' return if team doctors approve, despite not yet returning to full training following his exit from the first leg last week due to a muscle injury. Inzaghi said Inter would have to be at their best and said the semi-final second leg could go down to the wire via extra time and a penalty shootout following a closely fought thrilling first leg.
Insomma, è la squadra più prolifica al mondo, quindi hanno già vinto 2 titoli, sono in corsa su altri 2, quindi sappiamo che ci vorrà sicuramente una grandissima Inter.
Alessandro Bastoni called on his team to pull down all the stops in their bid to contain Barcelona's Lamine Yamal, who caused Inter's backline an array of problems. The 25-year-old Italian centre-back praised coach Inzaghi for his role in shaping the Italian giants as they make another deep run in Europe's Premier Club competition.
Zhao Xiantong became the first Chinese player to win the World Snooker Championship with a victory over Welshman and 3-time winner Mark Williams. The 28-year-old won by 18 frames to 12 despite a spirited comeback attempt from Williams.
Zhao received a 20-month ban in January 2023 after a match-fixing scandal that rocked the spots. But his road to redemption reached an emotional climax at the Crucible Theatre, just 10 minutes walk from his home in Sheffield. While Zhao looked completely unflappable and kept smiling throughout the afternoon session, Williams struggled for accuracy and appeared powerless to stop his opponent. Zhao had swept aside 7-time winner Ronnie O'Sullivan in the semi-finals to set up what had been billed as the coronation of a new snooker king. Zhao joined Terry Griffiths and Sean Murphy as the only qualifiers to capture snooker's most prestigious trophy. He banked a cheque for £500,000 with Monday's victory.
World number one Jannik Sinner said he was happy to return to tennis after a very long time away following a 3-month doping ban.
During a press conference in Rome, Sinner said it was a tough decision to accept the terms of a deal with the World Anti-Doping Agency, but that it was the best option for him at the time.
I didn't want to do it in the beginning, so it was a bit not easy for me to accept it because I know what really happened. But sometimes we have to choose the best in a very bad moment, and that's what we did. So it's all over now. So I'm happy to play tennis again.
Sinner accepted the 3-month ban in February after a settlement with WADA, who had appealed to the Court of Arbitration for sport to clear him. The top seed in the Italian Open said he did not have high expectations going into the tournament, saying his opening match would be a good test to see where his level is at. Sinner has a bye in the first round and will face the winner between Argentina's Mariano Navone or Italian wildcard Federico Sinner in the second round.
Super GT 2025 Series dengan 8 siaran langsung perlumbaan. Pusingan 1, 13 April dibawakan dari Litar Okayama International Circuit. Pusingan 2, 4 Mei dibawakan dari Litar Fuji Speedway. Pusingan 3, 28 Jun dibawakan dari Litar Sepang. Pusingan 4, 3 Ogos. Pusingan 5, 24 Ogos dibawakan dari Litar Fuji Speedway. Pusingan 6, 21 September dibawakan dari Litar Sportsland Sugo. Pusingan 7, 19 Oktober dibawakan dari Litar Autopolis, dan pusingan 8, 2 November dibawakan dari Litar Mobility Resort Montegi di saluran sukan RTM, juga secara penstreaman langsung di RTM Click.
And that wraps up World Today. In our top story, Israel Cabinet approves a plan to conquer Gaza. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. Alternatively, you can stream us live on RTM Click's website and mobile application. And we close our bulletin with a visual of thick orange haze blankets the sky of Kirkuk in northern Iraq. I'm Shuhaida Arifin from River to the Sea. Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching.